Hi, I'm going to start with a very simple thing, the contrast between nature and technology, something we immediately associate like a contrast. What I'm going to try and do tonight is share with you a project in which I want to talk differently about the opposition of nature and technology and how we basically can fuse the two to create new worlds. Another issue, computers and computer waste. There's tons of computer waste, we all know that. Now there's a lot of computer waste that's being shipped to third world countries. The disaster that is currently happening is that this is being recycled in a very crude and extremely unhealthy way. People cut computer parts manually and they burn them to distill components from that. Another issue, the usage of computers. Data centers all over the world are using more and more electricity, are using more and more energy, and at the same time are producing large amounts of heat. Electronics, when they're being used, produce waste heat, and that's being dissipated. Another thing, open source software. This is Diaspora. You might have heard of it. This is the upcoming alternative for Facebook, an open source alternative for Facebook. As soon as this is running, I'll be using it. It's beautiful that we have all these open source alternatives to commercial software. Game culture. Gamers. Antisocial people. A lot of people think gamers are just focused on their screen and they don't know anything else about the world. Well, it's actually a very social subculture. It's a very social activity to be a gamer. There are contests. There's a lot of exchange. There's collaboration. So basically, I want to bring these things together. And this is the last thing. Another issue on collaboration. There's a famous painting of Dali. The thing is that it was discovered recently, or brought up recently, that this is actually not painted by Dali. He just painted the lower part, and the higher part was painted by a different artist. The typical model of the artists. You have assistants working for you, but nobody knows. This is my project. This is the project Biomod, in which I bring all of this together. What you can see here is basically a living ecosystem that lives together with a network of 5 recycled computers. And the whole hybrid system functions as a server for a multiplayer computer game. This is the people I worked with. And these are the people that actually thank for working with me. They're not hidden behind the screens. This is a team, and I worked with them for about 4 months developing this idea. The idea of bringing nature, computer technology, all together in one sculptural functional system. This is a detail of the system. Of course, I don't have the time to go in every single aspect of it, but this is an interesting detail. This is water cooling. Part of the computer system is cooled by water, but instead of using commercial coolant liquid, we use living microscopic algae. A culture of living biology is physically cooling electronics while it's making its calculations. Now, the thing was that the algae, which you can see on the left top, they were doing their job a little too well. They were getting too warm. They were cooling too much. So we had to build a cooler for the cooler, a second cooler. And that's a spiral you can see. The warm algae were pumped through a fish tank and were radiating their heat to the fish tank. And the warm fish tank water was used to irrigate the plants. Biomod is a multicultural project. I'm doing this in different cultures in the world because every group of people I work with can bring in their own expertise, their own skills, their own experiences, and their own ideas about art and progress. This was basically the second version of Biomod, which was done in the Philippines. And this was the team, a huge team. You can't even read it anymore. This breaks down the team more or less into how it looked like. We started out with a core team, and these people worked with me for 8 months, non-stop, working on the project, trying to bring this idea, trying to make the dream come true in quite a challenging context like the Philippines. This was where we were working. We were working in a college town called Los Baños, at the foot of a beautiful mountain, Mount Makiling. Now, Mount Makiling is the home of one of the most famous spirits in Philippine mythology. And because we were working at the foot of her mountain, we chose to use her as a theme for the project. Because a lot of the stories about Maria Makiling are basically ecological stories. It's about how men deal with nature on the mountain and how they're punished when they don't really take care of it well enough. So we thought, what a wonderful thing to use it as a source of inspiration to give the idea of Biomod its own specific shape. So we developed a computer game, which was basically helping out Maria Makiling to build her forests. And basically, working with other gamers to make the forests blossom and grow. And she even had her own Twitter account. The main character, Maria McKeeling, had her own Twitter account and sent out messages about what happened in her virtual world. We also collaborated with traditional artists, not just computer art, also traditional artists. We went and looked for people in the nearby village of Paete who are famous wood carvers, and we invited them to work with us. And they gave their own interpretation of the same mythology, and this result was also incorporated in the work. And this was the result: a massive structure, a network of 8 computers, a tropical ecosystem, aquaponics, sensors, open source software, sculpture, all integrated into one interactive art piece that has been exhibited in different places in the Philippines. On the right-hand side, you can see some details, and you can see how different components have been recycled and clearly visually integrated. At this point, there is also another version of the same project, because these projects that I talked about take months. There's now also the Biomod workshop format, which is much shorter, much more compact, and allows me to meet up with more people, so I don't always have to set up these huge projects. And last but not least, I've basically open sourced the project. Basically, I've put all the ideas and the guidelines on the website of Biomod, and people can build their own version of it. They can make their own interpretation of it. And people can also use the name of Biomod. I don't mind. It's not just my artwork anymore. It's out there. The ideas are out there, and people can get feedback from me. And all of this has resulted in an invite from the European Space Agency to help think about the future of ecosystems in space. It's basically the division at the European Space Agency that works on ecosystems for future habitation in space that got interested. And so now I'm helping and working with them. Thank you very much.